It's 7:01 on Wednesday, February 5th, and I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. I have with me in the room Tom Parkins, Dina Hoddes, Gar Morse, Maury Creighton, Andy Olderman, Peter Twining, Town Administrator Greg Fetterspiel, and Fire Chief Jacob Neely. So our first item on the agenda is the FY26 Fire Department operating capital budgets.
Yep. All right. Do I have the ability to share?
You should be all set.
Oh, Gail, you got your hand up? Yeah, hold on.
Gail?
Hey guys, hold on.
Okay.
She couldn't hear it. He said it.
You sent a copy to everyone at 5:11.
Oh,
Sorry.
And I sent a copy to Gar at 6:11.
okay, I did.
Could
you try speaking again?
Hi, Gail, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, I think we're good. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
It's all right. Yes, apologies for the 4:30 and email. That was not intentional. So thank you for having me in. Kind of my plan, if you will entertain me for a little bit, is to kind of go an overview of the fire department, the services we provide, because I think sometimes some of the services we provide get lost in translation. And I've had some people come in and look at the new water truck like, oh, we didn't know you did all this stuff. So I thought it might be good to start with a quick overview. And then please, you know, I'm your target for tonight, so please shoot away as we go through. So we'll talk about our overview, talk a little bit about our receivables, kind of some things that we're working on to increase those, review our apparatus replacement plan, talk about our current FY25 as well as FY26, which includes a deputy chief, and then kind of looking forward at the next 5, 6, 7 years, kind of what's in the telescope per se, depending on what the climate is. So the fire department is not a fire department. We are a multi-response agency. A small percentage of what we do is fight fires. A large percentage of it is emergency medical services. And, you know, we protect a lot of things in town. We have 5,500 residents. The assessor's database is $4 billion in assets. My guess is the actual replacement cost is probably double or triple that number. We talk about the boats in the harbor as well as our land and our water. So, we kind of do a little bit of everything, and we'll kind of get into that. The main goal, regardless of what we do, life safety is our priority number one. Stabilize the incident so it doesn't get any worse. And then the third thing is property conservation. And those are doesn't matter what kind of call we go to, those are what our priorities are rolling out. So obviously firefighting, structural, wildland, vehicle, we've had all the above in the last few months. It's been a busy past quarter for us on all accords. And, you know, with these, you know, we talk about personnel, we talk about manning, and we'll kind of talk about what the differences are based upon who's in the station as well. Emergency medical services, I only had one picture with a patient in it that I had to blur the face, obviously, for reasons, but we provide emergency medical services anywhere. The one on the left is up at the top of the Manchester Essex Woods, that we had to stabilize the patient, give him pain medicine, and then extricate him down the mountain. So we do a little bit of everything, and all the other pictures are just training on pediatric advanced airways that were required. Emergency medical services, if you look at our percentages in a couple slides, you'll see that it looks low. What we found during a kind of an audit is our new software system, how people were entering calls. There were some inconsistencies with that. For instance, if you hit your Lifeline button, and you needed a lift assist, you didn't really need emergency medical services. Some of those were actually getting logged in as false calls, not medical calls. So the numbers in reality are about 78 to 80% of what we do has a medical component to it. The graph doesn't depict that, but that was picked up during an audit. High angle, low angle rescue, water rescue, ice rescue, auto extrication, and then wilderness rescues, which this year, I'm not sure if it was an anomaly, but I think we did 6 woods rescues this year from, I say summertime, end of June when school gets out through the fall, which I thought was an extraordinary number. Some were a little bit easier than others, and some were a mile or so hike in and a mile and hike out. Hazardous materials, fires, we plan to do oil spills, gas leaks, carbon monoxide incidents. Those are, those are seasonal, especially when the heating systems kick on. Right now is kind of our peak time for responding to those. And we found quite a few in the last 60 to 90 days that we actually had readings. So everyone's like, oh, my detector's going off, it's nothing. And then, they actually call us and our meters are going off and it is something. So anybody listening, we urge you, if your detector goes off, do not ignore it. We do public education outreach, car seat installations. We do all the stuff with the playgrounds, and we go into the schools, do our SAFE programs. A couple pictures that aren't on here are our community risk reductions, where we'll go in and we'll talk to the seniors. We recently did a lockbox program, combination with Essex, trying to find ways to mitigate risk, whether it's a trip and fall hazard in somebody's home, cooking safety for the elderly, things like that. We're trying to find what our at-risk populations are and try to mitigate as many as they have. And then we have our specialized stuff. We have a member that's a hazardous materials technician. We have somebody who's a confined space technician, and then all of our firefighters and police officers have recently been coming up to speed on active shooter or active assailant, because that is unfortunately the world we live in now. So if we're not doing it here, chances are we're going to be going somewhere mutual aid to help our neighbors if that unfortunate situation arises. So those are services we provide. Are there questions on our services? I call us the Leatherman, if you will. When somebody doesn't know who to call, they call us. And sometimes you call the fire department for that, but to them it's an emergency, so that's how we act. The other thing you'll see is our call volume. I've broken down our call volume to be more transparent. So if you look at our call volume last year that had a couple different reporting softwares, this is the first year that we actually have everything streamlined. Everything here is an emergency response. A 911 response is the 1,067 calls. That doesn't include inspections, permits, other types of public interactions going into the schools. We don't trigger an incident where some of our neighboring departments, literally every time the phone rings, even if it's, hey, is there school today, they're making that an incident. Our numbers are purely, you call 911, that's going to trigger a number. Yeah.
Is that provided through the county, through their 911, or is that something we do independently of?
So both. So if you call 911, they create the call in their CAD system, and then it gets dropped down into our fire reporting system, and then we assign what the end result is. So for instance, that fire number that you see there was an actual some type of fire. If you looked at the numbers from dispatch, they dispatched us out to a much higher percentage of fires, but when we got there, it wasn't a fire. It was a smoke scare or something like that. So these numbers are what was actually found when crews got on scene, not necessarily what they were dispatched for. And then our heat map, so everyone finds this interesting. So this is our, over the course of last year, these are all of our incidents. Where this technology really comes into play is, God forbid we have another pandemic, et cetera. We can actually hone in on a section of town that might have more. I could do, hey, how many people had flu-like symptoms during these calls? It'll give me a heat map. So we can look at some different techniques in order to keep our residents. We try to track everything by address and lat and long as well.
And is that coming through 911, or is that just?
That comes into our software, and then our software.
I see.
Yep.
That's that compatible software we have to get for the.
Yep, and then one of the things you'll see, and we'll get in our line item, is one of the bigger items is, or your operating budget wise, it says software dues and subscriptions. That's up there because we went to this first due software. We just voted as the police and fire chiefs yesterday to the regional to basically put that out as an RFP, and they'll take over that cost once we go through the state's not quick about anything, but I'm going to say 2 years just to be realistic.
Chief?
Yep.
Question. Do we possess any unique capabilities compared to communities around us? And you were talking to me the other day about the Tesla lithium-ion battery fires at the blank. Is there anything unique that you guys do?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate grant-wise compared to some of our neighbors. So we have electric vehicle shut-off capabilities. We have special blankets to put over if the lithium-ion batteries are going on fires. We have specialized training that we've got a regional training grant with Essex that we're putting people through different types of training. So on the electric vehicle side of things and kind of called the new age firefighting, we actually have some good capabilities compared to it. Not that they don't have capability, we've just been very fortunate in our grant writing and receiving to get some of that capability.
Can I ask about the lithium, the battery fires, which are primarily vehicles, it sounds like, but they're also used for like home solar systems?
Yeah.
Have any occurrences related to those?
So we've only had a few batteries that have lit off. That they were actually a remote control car was one that was the most. It wasn't in recent history, but in the last year or so, that a couple cells went off. We're seeing a lot more people putting those Tesla solar panels on the roof, but then they also put the Tesla solar packs either in the garage or on the side of the garage. So there's a couple different problems with the solar panels is it limits our ability to actually put a hole in your roof, which hurts us when we go into a fire. We want to make the environment more tenable. And so heat rises, so we put a little hole in your roof so the heat will go up and we can actually do our work in there. But with solar panels, even if we shut the power down, there's really no way to shut the solar panel. One of the things we do have, it looks like rhino lining. So we have a fire extinguisher that puts out rhino lining. So a lot of times we'll have a single panel that will either a branch will fall on and it'll catch on fire. We can actually spray this rhino lining onto the solar panel. It will disable that one panel so it won't basically cause a fire to go panel to panel. So this is all stuff you asked me 20 years ago. I'd say you're crazy that we'd be dealing with, but we have to figure out ways to mitigate it.
So it's not a specialized fire retardant, it's a rhino lining.
So it basically comes off as a rhino. It almost looks like an adhesive glue. And then so it covers the panel so light can't get through the panel. Therefore, it shuts the power down to the panel. And then when the fire is over and out, you actually peel it off. It's almost, I'm trying to think of the guy that's in the boat and he has a hole in the boat and he's painting the black. That's what it kind of looks like. But it's in a spray kit.
Flex seal,
So that's what it kind of looks like. One of the things that's interesting to Manchester, and these statistics actually kind of boggle my mind, because we can go 24 hours without a call, and then we'll do 3 calls in 6 minutes. Like there's no rhyme or reason to the call volume. So last calendar year we had 169 simultaneous calls, so 2 calls going on at the same time. 8 times we had 3 calls going on at the same time. 2 calls we had 5. 2 times we had 5 calls going on at the exact time. So that's where things get a little bit. We have to think on the fly of how we're going to best navigate some of those ones. So more and more we're doing simultaneous calls. I don't know the reason. There's no, it's not. Some of them a couple of them sure are weather related, but a majority of them are a fire alarm and a medical are coming in 30 seconds apart. And actually, I didn't plan it this way, but when I met with Tom, Andy for coffee, they had 3 calls while we were sitting there for coffee. I was like, I swear I didn't push this guy out of the wheelchair. It happened. And, I was like, at least it's good timing, If it had to happen, this is a great time for it to happen.
And then you said, no, you don't need to call me anymore.
Yeah,
It's funny, didn't you notice it was all quiet after we left?
So those are our statistics and kind of what we do. Any questions on that before we get into the nitty gritty of receivables? Services we provide, how we provide it.
Yeah, you'll tell us why we got the 45-page document from the Attorney General.
You're gonna want that page after I read these statistics. All right. So let me just minimize this. So this is our ambulance billing, and a little bit different. I did this for a calendar year, which took a little bit of working with Andrea and working our billing company, because typically we do everything on a fiscal year, but I wanted to give you the last 12 months. So the reason I gave you that extensive document, if you were ever bored to read, is looking at collectibles. And if anybody had watched the news recently, there was an article about ambulance billing, and it was quite interesting. So it was actually pretty timely to this discussion. So we did 308 transports that we billed for last year. There are calls now where we provide paramedic service that we go treat somebody and then they go, oh, I don't want to go anymore. You fixed me. We call the doctor at the hospital and say, you don't have to go to the hospital. We can't bill for those in the current climate. So 308 are actually people that were in the back of the truck on the way to the hospital. So if we look at what we total charges for last year was $706,027. What we actually got into the bank was $225,547. Obviously, there's a big discrepancy there. So we do not, we're not in network with any of the big healthcare providers. So your Harvard Pilgrims, your Blue Cross, things like that. So we're out of network, and I don't know any fire department that is in network. The reason being is we can charge a higher rate being out of network. And for the most part, most of our calls are emergency responses, so they're covered by the insurance. On occasion, we get called for something that's really not an emergency. Somebody thinks it's an emergency, it's really not. So the insurance company will say, that's not an emergent response. It's more of a transfer than a transport. And then you come down into your the lower category where we have our self-pay insured and our self-paid uninsured. You see a discrepancy there. That's just trying to get money out of it. Typically, it's been my predecessors included. If it's a town resident, we typically don't hound collections and go through a huge process. And then if it's out of town resident, we look at it a case by case basis based upon demographics, their situation, and we kind of take a human approach to that scenario. I spoke with Greg today. I think we haven't done it in a while. I think it's worth putting our ambulance billing out to bid. There's some different providers out there just to see what the appetite is, because typically they're taking between 4% and 6% for doing the billing service. See if we can get a better bang for our buck, if you will, by putting that out to bid. And so that whole document was basically to explain why you see a vast difference between what we bill and what we collect. And that document kind of goes into.
Go ahead, Dean.
How did the total the charges relate to our costs? Are they related, or are they?
So they are related. I look at Blue Cross Blue Shield, the private insurance. Typically, they're actually covering the cost of the trip. They're covering the cost of the crew. That's a true, apple to apple. We get into the Medicare, Medicaid, they're paying a very low percentage of what we're billing. They're not covering our costs. So pretty much we're covering the ambulance costs based upon those private insurance. The difference here versus, I know you guys had a joint meeting with Essex not too long ago, and they say their ambulance service is self-sustaining. All of their revenue from the ambulance service goes into an enterprise fund to pay for new ambulances, etc. We don't have. So that's why they say it's self-sustaining. Ours is just basically going into. We have increased our fees about every 6 months. So they hadn't been done for a long time, since last year. We started increasing last year. We saw an $80,000 increase over the last year from we're in the average. We bill whatever the average for the area.
What's that amount?
What's the
Billing amount for an ambulance run?
It is. Glad you asked.
They have a
Okay. So our current BLS emergency rate, which is basic life support. You have a small laceration. You don't need cardiac monitoring, cardiac drug. Your base rate is going to be $1,769 plus a mileage, and it's $41 a mile. And then our ALS rates are depending on what we do for things. So if you just have, I don't want to say basic chest pain because it sounds like it's not important. You have a minor, higher tier medical emergency, then that's going to be billed at $24.64 plus the mileage. If we give you 2 or more medications, then it bumps up to an ALS2, which is a more critical patient, and then you're going to be at $35.71.
How does that compare with our costs?
If we
Maybe it's
got,
impossible to tell.
it's impossible to tell. I would say if we were getting private insurance for every run,
Yeah.
we would be covering our costs. The problem is we're not getting the Harvard Pilgrims or Blue Cross PPOs for every call. We have the Medicare, Medicaids, non-insured.
What when you say we would be covering our costs?
Yep.
What is
So
what our cost is?
So the crew,
Yeah,
the crew
yeah.
for the ambulance and our consumables,
Sure.
our
Sure.
supplies and things like that. So that would cover the base cost. The problem when I say are we going to cover our costs is our firefighter paramedics are multi-rolled, so we're going to cover the cost of half their job. We're not going to cover the cost of the other half of their job.
Right.
I think it's the easiest
So
way.
what is the number? What is the cost? I mean, maybe it's impossible to say.
I don't even want to pull one out of my backside.
Yeah,
because
no, I'm not.
I can't back it up.
Yeah.
If you give me a little bit, I can do a
No,
little
no,
research.
that's all right. All right. Okay.
Well, for instance, so, I mean, I can see not having to figure the salary in because they're working anyway, whether they get a call or not,
Mhm.
they're there. But do simultaneous calls trigger an overtime that otherwise wouldn't have? Or
Yes.
like that. And then the other component is, I'm thinking to factor that out, you'd look at what the total allowable is closer to what that would be.
Yes.
And the total charges are including the labor.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, I think
that-
I think that would be fair. I think that right now we're in a position where those simultaneous calls we're not making money on because we don't have the ability to transport. So, for instance, when we were having coffee, our ambulance was already out of town. Somebody fell there on the ground on Pine Street, and we didn't have another ambulance. So we went and provided care. We had to wait for an ambulance to come from the Gloucester Rockport line to do the transport.
Can we not send an ambulance out of town?
Well, it was out of town as in transporting a resident to Beverly Hospital.
Okay.
It was already busy.
So are we losing transport fees due to our mutual aid provided in the ambulance ride?
Are we losing? No, because most of them, we're billing for our mutual aid fees as well. So like if we go to Wenham
Yeah,
and we provide care, we get paid for that. So from a financial standpoint, we're getting
we
paid.
get paid even if we don't transport?
No, so like
Only if we transport?
only if we transport.
Okay.
But
It's
if we
through
go,
the individual's insurance.
yes. So like if we go over to Essex and we provide paramedic care and we go with their EMTs to the hospital, whatever ambulance the patient is in does the billing. We get 60% of their collectibles because we provided ALS care, they keep 40. So there's a 60-40 split if we just provide them paramedic service. If we do the transport, we send our ambulance and we do everything, we get 100%. So right now, I mean, I look at it from, I don't look at it as, I should look at it as a, how do we make money? I look at it from, hey, when that person was on Pine Street, it's 4 degrees outside, we want to be able to take care of that person. So that's where, when that second ambulance comes in, we would be able to take care of that. I look at it from that standpoint.
I think my concern, and I know you're really big on the mutual aid piece, but my concern is that so many of the area towns do not have ALS services. And they use private services that may have become less reliable. My concern is how much is it costing Manchester because we have ALS to be bailing out the other towns that don't have it?
So I think we're actually, we make money on that.
Okay.
Because we actually, when we go there, we're providing ALS service, so we're getting that 60% of that call. Right now, we're sending the SUV because we don't have 2 ambulances, so that allows us to leave our ambulance in town and still help out Essex. We have to go if they call by law. So it's not a, we don't want to do it. If somebody calls and we have an ambulance available, we have to send it. There's no, that's just state law, unfortunately. Right now there's other, let me correct, there's other small towns not adjacent to us but nearby that are having some struggles, and it's costing them a pretty penny because it's not mutual aid. It's you're basically subsidizing somebody else's service. So there's a difference. If they need help, we help them, and we ask for help almost equally, if not more, than we give help
For medical?
for medical, because we need an ambulance because we only have one. I mean, that will change once we have a second one because we can do simultaneous calls. But right now, every time we have two medicals at the same time, we have to ask for help.
For instance, like Middleton must have had a terrible time with overtime this year because of the forest fires. Did we send people to help them?
So yeah, so we sent people. So they looked at FEMA for some reimbursement. However, I forget. Do you remember the dollar figure? It had to be per incident, not per. It could be. There was some breakdown, but we didn't hit the threshold that it was going to be to get reimbursement. But then we asked for help too. So I mean, it all comes in the wash.
Yeah.
So the recent fire, where we were getting mutual aid on that recent fire.
Yeah. We have 7 different towns. So, for instance, Gloucester sent an engine and a ladder. So they sent 7. They sent 5 in an engine, 3 on the ladder truck. So they got 8 people, and they're backfilling 8 on overtime as well for coming. So, and then in the scheme of things, yes, you see a big bump. So you'll see a big bump in our overtime for the last month because we had a bunch of fires here and fires in Beverly and things. But if you look at all the communities, it's all going to equal out.
I was surprised at that Berkshire fire, how many of the firefighters turned out for it.
We had
That was a pretty good response.
So
wasn't it?
from Manchester, we had an awesome response. It had a couple things it had to do with is time of day, because it was like 10 o'clock at night, so not everybody was sound asleep. That if it was at 1 o'clock in the morning, it would have been a much different response. Because I get yelled at for having my pager on, and I tell my wife, "Well, we don't have a choice. That's my job." But some people don't listen. Between midnight and 5 a.m., it's a lot harder to do it. But we had a great response. I was very pleased with that.
So in that situation, did the call firefighters play into that?
Yep. So we wanted to say all together, we have 23 people on staff. I think 19 or 20 were involved in the incident somehow. So they definitely played a role in, and we talk about staffing, and it's the Achilles heel, right? But that was perfect having 4 people because they had to hand lay hose through the woods to get water, and if they didn't have the 4th person, that house probably would have gone up. So it made a huge difference having that 4th person. It's night and day operation.
That was kind of a sleight of hand question to get at. It looks as though the call firefighter team that we put together last is working.
They are doing awesome. We just had a call. I was driving here. They had Summer Street. They had a fire alarm activation, a commercial. They had 3 call firefighters come back out of 6. We'll call that a win.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So there's a Beauport ambulance that's usually hanging out on Pine Street.
Yeah.
How does that fit into this whole mix? Or is it disconnected?
So it's not disconnected. So Beauport is our primary backup for ALS. Essex is our primary backup for BLS. So Beauport is contracted. They provide the primary ambulance for the town of Hamilton. They do ALS for Wenham, and they do ALS for Essex primary. So what happens is they have a truck in Hamilton and they have a truck on the Gloucester-Rockport line. If the truck from Hamilton goes to do a transfer from, let's say, Beverly Hospital to Boston, that Rockport-Gloucester truck moves down and out. They're covering that entire area. So that's just their central point of trying to hit all the towns. Because if they were sitting in Hamilton, it would be hard to get back up to Rockport. So that's basically where they sit. They're there all those guys. I think they get 10 hours of sleep there because they're covering the line.
Yeah.
Oh, so God, I can't believe how boring that must be.
So overall, these are our numbers from Andrea pulled them just for calendar year, so she had to kind of merge numbers. So 270,000 was our receivables for calendar year 2020.
So for smoke alarm inspections,
Yes.
Are the fees we're charging sufficient to cover the costs, or should we be increasing the fees?
We should be increasing the fees, and I say that with a caveat. Some of the fees are tied to MGL, Mass General Laws.
Okay,
So you'll see, I had put a recommendation for some, a lot of towns are adding an admin fee on top of the permit fee, which is allowable.
okay.
So I'll be submitting that as a idea to the select board to see if they'll approve those.
What's the magnitude of the admin fee permitted?
That's not listed, either for or against. So most towns are doing a $25 admin
Oh, it's a flat number.
flat. And we can do whatever we want. It just has to be consistent, and so we can report on it. Either change it based upon too many parameters, it's hard to get.
Are you still only charging $50 for smoke alarms, or is that?
Yes, it's got to be 50 plus 20. Well, if it's approved, it's going to be 50 plus 25. Oh, right here.
It was 50, 12 years ago.
Yeah, and so a lot of the things haven't changed for decades and decades and decades. And then we're just looking at adding some admin fees to some of these. And, you know, like the blasting permit admin fee is a little bit significantly more because there's a lot more to it, especially as of late. So it kind of covers some of the personnel costs to deal with some
And
of
you
the
can't increase the blasting fee over the $50?
correct.
Easy.
Is there a way we could differentiate between like resident costs and commercial costs? Because, I mean, in a way, we're paying for this stuff already by funding the department.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the fees are good, but I don't think they need to cover the whole cost because most of the people incurring them are already funding the department,
No, I think the fee should cover the cost.
the whole cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are so many, if you look at the fire department itself, there's a lot of personnel time when they're not doing a fee-related activity, they're not responding to a medical call. So there's a large portion of their time that has no opportunity for reimbursement from them anywhere. I mean, fires, there's no reimbursement. That's what we're paying for, you know, and it just seems to me that wherever we can charge fees.
And a lot of these, for the most part, are commercial. I mean, even if it's a commercial, it's still getting passed on to the residents somehow, right?
This is true.
Because the real estate agent's charging for the 26F on their house. You're paying for it,
Yeah.
just not.
And the commercial people are charged.
But they're probably up. They're doing an admin fee on top of admin fees on top of it. You
Yeah,
know?
no, it's.
Okay.
I wonder though, down at the bottom, the
Yeah.
commercial plan review for
Yeah.
over 5,000 square feet and under 5,000, 300 and 600. I mean, how much time do you spend doing that? And I mean, I'm thinking of one thing on School Street, which is probably not a 20-minute review.
Correct. So, and it's not just School Street. So what I found, and I was assistant fire prevention where I came from as well, and unique to this town is people put very unique things in their houses, like hair salons, bowling. Like it takes a lot of time to research what the fire, requirements are for an area of a bowling alley. So it's hard to do apples to apples because there's so many things that are unique with this town. So it was just trying to find a catchment area that was appeased both.
But I mean, if you just sort of took your hours or your team's hours for a year doing that and just sort of said, is $600 or $300 an hour reasonable? You know, I mean, if you're off by 50 or 60%, that's one thing. If you're off by 5 or 10x.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we don't have the numbers. We just started tracking like literally every activity we do in the fire department, so we can report on that. So we'll have a little bit better of an idea. But you'll have some commercial properties that are pretty straightforward because they don't have any unique features and things like that. So that might take me an hour to go through. And then you get some of these, residential might take me 4 hours to go through because we're going in and looking at all the different codes and subsets.
Residential that are over 5,000 square feet,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
right? So you only get $50
Yeah.
per
Well,
10,000 square foot house.
I'm looking at the commercial.
right now we get
I'm
nothing.
looking down at the bottom. the commercial plan review.
Oh, you're proposing 50
And the-
dollars.
I'm proposing that, because right now, it's just built into the building permit fee, but nothing on the fire end.
Okay.
And these are basically, these aren't arbitrary numbers. I reached out to 10 communities that recently researched and updated their numbers, and these are the averages of what.
Do you have pretty good data of what people have in their home? And I don't want to be too big brother about this, but you know, if somebody's got a heated driveway that's running on a propane system that's 30 years old, do you kind of know that? And
The
you
old
kind of have a
stuff,
heads
no,
up on
going
that?
forward, we will, because everything's, I probably can go back in the records in the basements and
Mhm.
find a permit for a propane tank and what the
Right.
use was for, but, you know, to quickly reference it, no.
I had a fire person at my house not that long ago, and he actually did an inspection
Yeah.
of the house just to kind of, he said he was looking for, and I happen to have a solar system with a battery in the
pack.
garage. So, yeah, so he was looking around the property, outside the property, just to
Right.
kind of see what was there so that,
Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the, when we talk about community risk reduction, we do a lot of pre-planning, especially when we show up. You look at some of these driveways, for instance. Some you can't get any fire trucks in. Some you can get an engine in, but not a ladder truck. So we go out and pre-plan these, so when the address comes in, we know, hey, this is, you know, the closest hydrant, this is where we're gonna park. You know, so we kind of have our game plan already set up, just in case that particular house catches fire. That's a big undertaking that, you know, we maybe get 20 houses a year done in between with our time, because it takes.
So are those just notes to the file on a given address that,
Yeah, so if we get dispatched to 123 Main Street on the computer in the truck, the officer just taps it, and it'll tell them everything about the property, things like that. All right, any questions on fees, permits, receivables? So kind of the big one for us is, you know, putting that ambulance billing out to bid, see if we can get a better rate on that. And we've been really looking, doing QA, QI, quality improvement on our EMS reports, making sure that everything is documented appropriately to increase the billables on those.
When you say out to bid, you mean like a collection agent?
Yeah, so right now we use Comstar ambulance billing out of, I think they're in Rowley or Georgetown. And there's probably half a dozen in the area that do a very good job. It's just, you know, will somebody do it for 1.5% less? That just increases our collection.
The chief, just take me back. So on fees, what's our conclusion from this conversation? Are there fees that need to be raised?
Yes.
And what's the process for that happening?
Yeah, recommendation from the chief and then the select.
Okay, and that's ongoing.
Yes, that's going to be submitted in short order. I was waiting there, kind of busy with this budget thing, but once they slow down a little bit.
be nice to have them effective July 1.
But that would be to between allowable and collected. It wouldn't really be charges.
No. he's
Oh,
not-
so I'm talking the fees for the permits and stuff.
That's
Yeah.
what I was asking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So the ambulance fees, pretty much they're set. There's some hope that, you know, they'll renegotiate, Medicare and Medicaid will renegotiate, but they've been saying that for a better part of a decade. They haven't gone up. They've gone up maybe 4%, and our costs have gone up significantly more than 4%.
Off the top, the difference between allowable and collected is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the private insurances.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like 80-something, 81%. Yeah. Yeah. So apparatus replacement plan, we are on target.
Yes.
Thankfully, we are on good. So a couple things that engine one, which is I'll say our lone pump truck, is 2011, starting to show its age. It should be in reserve right now. The guys are very good about maintaining the equipment, doing as much preventative maintenance as we can. So we're trying to use that a little bit less. We're using the ladder truck more for two reasons. One, it gets them out driving it more and more comfortable. It's a big truck, more comfortable, knowing where it'll fit, and more importantly, where it doesn't fit, because we don't want to figure that out when somebody's house is on fire. So that's why we're doing that. Engine two, we're currently borrowing Linfield's engine. They've been very good, and you know we've been good hosts. We just had some PM done on it and things like that, just because it was pumped quite a bit the other night. So we wanted to take care of it. So the goal is we put in with Rosenbauer, the same manufacturer as the ladder truck, to purchase a new pump that would be delivered July 1st of 27, so FY 28, which aligns with this. The reason we were able to do that was, I won't say a loophole, but it's a line item in the Sourcewell contract, which I'm sure will not be in there in their next revision. It says that we can order the truck and pending appropriation of funds. The appropriation of funds allows us to back out of the contract. We were able to order at today's dollars, but actually get delivery when to align with the thing, which right off the bat saved us about $240,000 based upon the average 5% per year, and then the new diesel engine, which is I think $5,000. So that worked out very, very well. Ladder 1 is working out great. Ambulance 1 working out well. The second ambulance, or the new ambulance, should arrive at the end of calendar year 26, maybe smidge into 27. It's just a long delay. And once we get it, it will line up with our 7 years. So our new ambulance will be frontline primary for 7 years, then it will go back to the back line for 7 years. And I know there's been a lot of discussion in years past, we need 2 ambulances. Just the lead time alone to get an ambulance, we'll be going on almost 3-year wait time to get one. If we blew an engine, something like that, we'd be in deep water. So it's really important to have some type of mechanical backup by itself.
What does it mean to blow an engine?
You know, if a head gasket goes, you know, a major mechanical problem.
Something that renders it not operational.
Not operational.
We put that many miles on it?
I mean, they're hard miles too. I mean, it's not, most diesels are meant to like run and go from here to California, and our start, stop, you know, things like, so they're not easy miles. Squad,
Is the
which,
new one gonna be diesel as
Yeah.
well? So that is still better.
yeah, diesel, and then the 4-wheel drive, which we need for, and that's why we go with the Ford pickup truck chassis versus the van fronts, because the 4-wheel drive with some of our hills that we have and the driveways and stuff, the weather really impedes our ability to access places. Squad is the pickup truck that we use for brush fires. That's going, that's working out well. No issues there. Car 2, which is the old fire chief's car, is now used as the paramedic fly car if we go out of town. It's also used if it's a 3-man crew. If we go on a medical, 2 firefighters will take the ambulance, the officer will take the car, just to reduce the wear and tear on the bigger pieces, and it's safer. We used to always take a fire engine with 1 person in it. I don't like that because I think that's very unsafe, especially some of these places we're backing out of. Things like, if we have to, we will. But I think it's much safer to have somebody in a SUV versus a fire.
What happens to car 2 when ambulance arrives?
So that is due to replace, and it all kind of depends on where we're going in the future.
Okay.
Yes.
A fly car?
So it's basically, it has all the paramedic gear in it. It has everything an ambulance has in it, just in an SUV. So, for instance, we'll go over to Essex, jump on board their ambulance, provide the advanced level care, and just follow their ambulance to the hospital, and our ambulance is still available to our citizens. And then my car. So the only,
Where's your car black?
so because it was the last one available, and it was going to be a 6-month wait and a $15,000 increase to wait. So the other, and it was cheaper than, I don't know why, it was cheaper than a Ford Explorer, which I'm like, pretty wide. I'm like, all right, that works for my sitting in it, so I wasn't going to complain. So everything on the apparatus replacement plan is the exact same as you've seen since I came. So we're online with that. We put in for $300,000 for this year. I think just to be transparent, I think it would be good for the next, so 27 and 28, to plan on 350, because just looking at what some of the trucks are coming in at, I'd rather be ahead of the game than coming back and begging. So
What's the current balance in the account?
well, after we just bought the ambulance, so it'll be 300 after this year. So we'll have, if we do 300, then 350, the engine will be paid for by the time we pay on delivery. Questions, apparatus? No. So this is current year, so our salary line item, we're 55.59% expended, and then our operating line item was 62.26%, so a little bit above, but that's normal because a lot of our expenses are front-loaded in the beginning of the fiscal year, and then our ambulance inspection, when the state comes in, they literally check expiration dates of Band-Aids and everything, so a lot of that stuff, our consumables, get revamped in the fall. So that's a typical bump that we see. It's not out of the realm of ordinary.
And everyone is on active duty, we don't have any.
Currently, we have one that's going to be going out for a knee replacement. I just found out yesterday. However, with where our shift staffing is, we have 4 assigned to a shift, so we dropped to 3.
Yeah.
So unless one of those other 3 are on vacation, it doesn't affect.
How long is somebody out with a knee
I think it's 6 weeks,
Oh,
6 to 8 weeks.
oh, I would thought it'd be much longer
More like
for a
6 months.
firefighter.
And then they have the option too of maybe coming back light duty, which is
Sure.
helpful because
Yeah.
there's a ton of stuff that.
Where are we in overtime?
Next one up.
Can I just ask on the salary, how many salaried employees are
So
there?
we have 16 firefighters plus myself. 17. Yeah. Overtime, our budget's $100,000. We're currently at 61.95% expended, which is actually for a fireworks year is right on track because we see a bump during fireworks year generally. And we'll see another bump typically July and August with vacations, and then December with vacations are our biggest ones, and normally they tail off towards the end of.
So does this include the overtime from the structure fire, or is that not yet hit?
That has not yet. That has not yet, because that would be on. That does not yet.
Maybe I misread it, but I looked at the report for the last 6 months that Andrea gave us.
Yep.
It showed a much larger percentage.
So we had one of our firefighters was deployed down to North Carolina as part of FEMA. So he was gone 2 weeks. He gets paid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 weeks. But we just got reimbursement for that funds, which was $13,000 and change. So I'm not sure when that was printed if that was added to that.
Well, it was a 12/31 number, like 86% or something that we had spent as of
So the
12/31.
reimbursement must come in.
But probably the reimbursement's
Yeah.
not there, but that's a substantial percentage difference.
Yeah.
Peter, this is on the overtime?
It was in overtime, and it was in the quarterly report at the end of the year that Andrea, that you provided, Andrea. I just noted that it's a notable percentage. I'm just looking for that.
And then she might, this is shift overtime,
Hold on just a moment. Andrew, you have your hand raised.
Oh, sure.
Yes, I just want to say I didn't transfer that 13,000 until January when I got the confirmation of the number.
Thank you.
So that's why it's still included in the December amount.
And Andrew, that's probably what makes that percentage so substantially larger.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Andrea?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. So the other thing kind of with the overtime too is looking at the forecast for the next 10 days is we can't predict some of these snowstorms. So typically when there's a snowstorm, I ensure that there's at least 4 people working because trying to get the call firefighters in, obviously coming from home is a delay. So we typically, if somebody is out, we do backfill that 4th spot, if you will, on the storm.
And what size storm do you kick that in on?
So it all depends on when the storm hits. I look at traffic.
Yep.
So the one on, I'm more worried about the one on Saturday overnight and Sunday because
Yep.
it seems like that's going to be a whopper as of right now. I won't make a determination on that till Saturday morning when the forecasters make their best educated guess on what the snow totals are going to be. But those are the ones I do up staff on because it's much harder to get or slower to get mutual aid here as well
Sure.
because of the road. So And here's just kind of our graph on our overtime over the last 4 years versus this fiscal year. So, we're kind of right on track on, where we should be. And obviously, we had some jumps. I think COVID year was in there, and some of the other ones that make that 4 year pretty high. But we're doing quite well with our overtime. One of the other things that has helped is having the full shift staffing allows firefighters to take some comp time in lieu of overtime if they're doing training and things like that. So we drop down staffing, but we don't have to pay the overtime. So that helps us as well. So we try to be calculated in that.
But the trend is still rising.
So January, that is, the hours here do include that fire. So that, we were there for the better part of 14 hours by the time we had the hose out of the woods and stuff like that. So you will see bumps and jogs based upon our call line. Yeah.
Do you feel like we're in the sweet spot with the staffing as far as our overtime is down, but our overall labor costs are up. But
yeah.
We're a little bit.
So I think there's a happy medium, right? Because you have overtime, which is, I don't say good because no one likes the word overtime, but then you add an FTE, then you got benefits. So there's a good balance on, where's the happy medium financially. I think we're in a good spot because we have a lot of flexibility. We do a ton of training on duty. They use my name in vain all the time. Every day they're doing something. They have to. And so we have a good ability to train because we have, when we're at 4 people, we can do that. Talking about staffing a little bit, we talk about three firefighters on duty versus 4. And we always chuckle about the 2 in, 2 out rule historically. The one thing I do want to hit home about is a lot of people don't realize what that means. So you look at the average house in Manchester, we're very fortunate. Most of them have fire detection systems. So the fires that we have, they're single room fires, kitchen fires that we're alerted to early. But if we pull up to your house and you're outside and you say everyone's out, there's no life hazard in there, but the guys would have to go on air to go deal with it, they can't go in if they don't have 2 outside and 2 inside. So that small little fire that we got alerted to early, we still have to wait for other people. So that's where that difference comes in. If it's an unknown hazard, we don't know if anybody's in there, then we always go in. But if you come out and say, yep, everyone's out, all the humans are out, then that's where our hands are tied legally that we can't go. So capital, mobile radio upgrades, just trying to.
Chief, before you go by staffing, in looking at the budget printout, I was confused about where we don't have appropriations for some positions last year. Does that apply a new position? This is the question I was.
Yeah. So
there are 4 of these.
Yeah. So the old way, if you will, of accounting was firefighter Joe Smith. Here's his salary.
Yeah.
And then if Joe Smith got promoted, that line item's now empty. So now instead, once ClearGov's back up and running and you look at it, you'll just see 4 officer positions and firefighter positions below it. It won't be tied to a name. For instance, you see a firefighter like Lieutenant Cavender became a captain, so his lieutenant spot's open, so there's a positive and a negative. And
If you look at Andrea's spreadsheet, which I sent you,
Okay.
way over to the right, it has the names. And
Right.
you'll see like Cavender's on there twice, one says captain, one says lieutenant. So the lieutenant went to 0 and the captain went way up.
So
Because we only had 11,000 in for captain last year.
Double counting.
And then there's another one who left. So he zeroed out and somebody
new came in.
replaced them. So there's no additional
okay. Well,
people. They're just different people.
yeah, it's a format that I find
Right.
deeply confusing. But
Yes. But if you further over to the right, there are
yeah,
actual
I
names.
will. I'm going to go
which
to
makes
that
it-
right now.
I looked at that this afternoon and I said, oh, okay, that makes sense.
And it's a lot,
Thought I had it.
when I say clear, it's a lot clearer in ClearGov when it was up and operational because you actually just saw it was tied to a position, not a person, which makes it a little bit clearer. Good on last year's operating, so capital budget request for this coming year, mobile radio upgrades. Just basically, some of our radios are decades old, so we're just slowly plugging away at upgrading our radios. Year 2 of 3 of our cardiac monitors, our advanced life support monitors. Year 1 of 3 for fire engine. And then the other 2 is SCBA and fill station. So I spoke with our contact at FEMA and in reference to the grants, because I think we're in a pretty good spot for a FEMA grant for the SCBA's. Obviously, there was a halt on all grant activity. They just have to take out some particular wording, the DEI wording and things like that. So they're in peer review right now in Maryland, and we should actually start hearing about grant awards within the next month or so. But those SCBA's, that's, if we don't get a grant over the next year and a half, that's something that we're going to have to address because they're going to time themselves out. I was 90% sure we were going to get it last fiscal year, but a lot of small departments in the Midwestern part of the country put in for, they had packs that were 40 years old, so we got bounced. So I'm relatively certain that we're going to be in a good place for a grant.
Do we already have a fill station, and is this a replacement, or is this our first fill station?
No, we have a fill station, and basically those time out as well. So there's air quality measurements that they had to measure the air that's going into the bottle, make sure it's safe. So those time out as well.
And what's the typical life of?
Fill
breathing
station,
apparatus?
so a pack or apparatus?
Oh, both, yeah, each.
Oh, so the breathing apparatus is 3 hydrants, so 15 years, typically 15 to 20 years on a pack. The fill station, depending on the model and what packs you have, you can get 15 to 20 years out of that as well.
And we have one fill station.
One fill station. There's some question, do we need a fill station? The answer is yes, because we train every day, and that's on air. So it's not just filling when there's a fire, it's filling when they're training and doing those types.
I was just, we had discussed whether we should have one or not for years, and I wasn't sure whether we had one. So my question is this the first one, or is this a replacement?
No, this has been on the capital list for we knew it's coming. Yep. It's just coming down to the line that we really hope we get the grant. That's basically what it comes down to.
And the issue with the existing one?
So the fill station is when the technology in the breathing bottles has changed. So the fill station won't work with the new style bottles. That's it. Yeah. Funny. Yeah.
Damn innovation.
So FY25, any questions on capital?
Just hypothetical with the sea level rise and the use of the garage. If we had to seal that and say, waterproof, or you'd lose the use of it, what would you need? Like, with a separate building, would you have enough?
So in the short term, we could probably, the stuff that's in there is in the lower garage where I park, but I can park anywhere. The brush truck and the boat, which I guess the boat would float down there. But the other problem is just inside of that is all of our heating equipment.
Right.
So that's it's not so much I'm worried about the garage, it's more of the building utilities that's the problem, not so much the garage.
Yeah, because that boiler's been working pretty hard this week.
They were there working on it today. Actually, we sprung a leak yesterday, so they're working on it today. So FY25 operating was $209.50. So the two different operatings I put forward. The first one is $198,950. I shoot from the hip. We really need a deputy, and I'll get into the reasons for that in a little bit. So I went through the operating budget with a fine-tooth comb and said, where can we do stuff in-house if we had this extra consistent person that was there Monday through Friday? So I don't want to cut off my face despite it, but I went through and really redlined everything in order to save every penny I could to make it fiscally feasible to get a deputy. So that's in the FY26. The FY26 with no deputy sees a increase of $16,250 because some of the things that we would have been able to do in-house, now we still can't, but there's also an increase in cost by not being able to do them in-house. Some of the training equipment. So that's kind of why there's a difference. And I have all the line items here to go one by one, just so you can see it if you have any questions.
But the budget we have
Shows the
is
198.
the 198.
Budget
And it doesn't have a deputy. You're in
So
trouble.
we took the lower number on both.
Oh, okay. So I am going to.
Careful what you tell
Greg
Greg.
and I did not have a chance to meet over this. So
It seemed too good to be true.
that was, yes. So the salary line item, currently, FY '26 with a deputy would be an increase of $82,185. Without a deputy, obviously, the increase is based on contractual obligations. There's an increase, but there's not a.
Can't negotiate it
Yes,
down.
exactly. So, kind of just going through, and if you don't want to go through all these line items, let me know. Some of these are pretty boring, but no changes, natural gas, fire station utilities, electricity, heating oil. And some of these vary based upon the season, how cold it is, things like that. But so far, we're on track for.
I was amazed electricity didn't pay.
Yeah, we've been, I also go through and turn off every light when I walk in every room too, so.
Do we have actuals for '24? Are they in the ballpark?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah,
They're on the sheet.
Okay.
yeah. They're in the ballpark.
Actual was, for electricity was $7,000 and electricity 800.
So low ball.
Just ask a question about vehicle maintenance up there a moment ago,
Yep.
30,000. Is that enough? And I mean, you've got probably a couple $1 million worth of assets on wheels.
That's where your firefighters during their downtime are very good. The $30,000 is used when they don't either have the technological tool to diagnose or fix it, or we have to have a company come in, do pump testing, things like that. That number is good now. If we didn't have a new pump coming and we were going to try to make engine one last longer, that number would skyrocket. Most departments, their apparatus maintenance budget in the $80,000-$100,000 range. We're very fortunate that the guys take good care of the equipment and they're willing to do, preventative maintenance. Building maintenance, most of the building maintenance is in with DPW. This is just, fixing stuff that we can run down to the hardware store and fix ourselves without bothering anybody. Training and equipment. So this is just basically a cost increase based upon percentage of what things cost, as in training equipment that we use would be props, different types of EMS equipment, consumables that we use for some of our fidelity labs and training.
But there's a note, and maybe it's an incorrect note. There's a note on our sheet that says education costs college added.
Yep, so part of that too is if they take a college course, their books will come out of that line item for the book. Yep. And then some of those
Just
books.
wondering how a college expense with the training equipment.
Yeah. So they'll do the books, and then our hope is those books can be reused by the next person that goes through that. So they come into a library, so we're not having a reoccurring expense for the same class.
Does that college course have to bear some relation to their work?
Yep. Yeah. So usually either it's fire science administration, public administration. There's half a dozen different things, or paramedicine. Something along those lines is tied to. Yep.
Do we pay for the tuition? Just
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And that's contractual, and they do that based upon. Now it changed that it's by degree. We have a couple people still grandfathered tuition wise. New contract is just based by degree at the end. Yeah. Custodial gas, diesel, call firefighter supplies decrease, just because we're not hopefully onboarding anybody. We have our 6, they're working out really well, so I don't think there's any, we have some ongoing costs, but we're not buying people new gear. Everyone has.
Has anybody left in the last year?
Computer expenses, travel and meals, that's for, we go to conferences, things like that. And that dues and subscription is the one that covers our first new program that hopefully regional dispatch will be picking up at some point in time once the state, all the fire departments that are in regional dispatch have agreed to go to it. 80% of us are already on it. They're going to absorb majority of that cost.
Starting in FY '27 or?
Yeah, I've been amazed at how slow the procurement process in the state. It ceases to amaze me. So I think Chief Fitzgerald's on, but I can talk.
Yes, he is.
On the emergency management. So it's under the fire department, but Chief Fitzgerald's the emergency manager. The one thing I'll say is we've been we work cohesively. For instance, we added the Polaris side-by-side. We were able to find it on a Facebook marketplace for $7,500. So that was one of the things that the emergency management account purchased. So yes, we're not paying for the reverse 911 because regional dispatch has picked up that cost. So that's why the budget you have has that zeroed out. But I believe, and I'll let him chime in, but I think it's really important. There's some other needs of our CERT team and drones, which are vitally important to all of us.
Chief Fitzgerald, would you like to speak to this emergency budget?
Thanks, Sarah. Just you got my memo, which outlines some of the things that Jake and I would like to do next year. Obviously, one of them is the replacement of our current drone and the expansion of a community emergency response team, which I have had some residents reach out and are interested in it. However, I don't think we have enough to have our own team, so we're looking to combine our people with the team in Ipswich. So the numbers I gave you was just a rough estimate of some of the costs that I think would be resulting as bringing that team up to speed. So that's pretty much all I have.
So Chief, what is the team now? I'm a little confused about what is our emergency management team now?
So it's basically myself and Chief McNeil. Two of us.
Okay.
So if we had to open a shelter, we'll rely on our current first responders. But if we're in a serious crisis, then our current first responders are going to be tied up doing other things around town. So these people would be able to arrive and do the initial setup and get things rolling if we ever had to open a shelter. Plus, they'd be helpful in other events around town, like the 4th of July. If we have a fire, things like that. There's special training that they can do, and that's part of the reason I think we need to regionalize with the Ipswich crew, because they have a pretty good team, like I said, up and running.
Do they get paid?
No, they don't get paid. They're all volunteers.
So this is this is cost of
This
training.
is just funds to help us train these people initially.
So the proposal would be to level fund this account rather than drop it by the 6,000 that
Right, yeah.
the original budget shows, so the preliminary budget shows.
And why do we need to replace the drone?
I would like to get one with the infrared for search and rescue at night, like the heat seeking and infrared. The current one we have is a non-commercial one, and I just like to bring it up to law enforcement standards. or
And
public
also-
safety standards, I should say.
Yeah, we used it for the brush fires we had in the Beverly, Manchester woods, and Sergeant Shane was out, and he was able to save us probably 4 hours of trying to find it. And it would have been even quicker to find the heat signature on where that fire would have been, having that technology, lost people, etc. So across both police and fire, it has drastic impact on our operations. Even a building fire, we can use it, put it up top, and kind of see what's going on from a sky view.
When we had the recent kidnapping issue, we had the drone on scene looking as well.
Greg, you suggest level fund, you mean it's 6,000 or 7,500? What's the proposal?
Level fund from current year would be 7,500.
7,500.
So we're adding
So it'd be adding back
6,000 to what's
6,000. So, Chief McNeely, on the operating.
Yep.
You know, what you ran through was what's in the budget book.
In the budget that you gave to them.
Yes.
And then,
So what is the, what line items, I don't have that. In this-
right, so right
in
here,
front of me.
these three, sorry, were the ones that would show an increase.
Oh, so those are the, okay, that's
So-
what those represent.
Yes, yeah. Range management. All right, so now on the deputy chief. So the reason I am, I think this has been on the docket, I assume, for the last probably decade as well. There's a lot on my plate, and I've done not patting myself on the back, but I came out of the gate strong. The steam is starting to wean a little bit, and now that we have the major things accomplished, now it's really how do we optimize each of these individual areas, and they have a lot of detail. Fire prevention is the biggest one. That's the biggest hurdle because we always have building in town. Like I said, there's some unique buildings in town, and you should see some of the drawings that are still pending that are coming forward. So that is a heavy lift, and it takes a lot of time to do those, and it's very hard being pulled in different directions and do those efficiently. We're only probably doing 10% of what we should be doing fire prevention wise. We're doing the stuff that literally you need to sell your home. I need my smoke certificate. We're getting those things done, or I need the building permit. But actually going out and looking at tank removals, oil burner installs, things like that. We do them occasionally, but we are not doing a very good job. We prioritize our fire prevention. The incident safety officer is a huge one. Just another set of eyes. For instance, this fire up here, I was in incident command, so I am basically organizing the orchestra, but somebody has to be looking out for their safety from an outside perspective. I was lucky enough that I was able to task a Essex deputy with that assignment once they got there. So we were able to do that. Citizen representative, I spend a lot of time, and maybe it's just the last 8 months or so, but there's been a significant uptick in the amount of time I'm spending talking with, which I don't mind talking to citizens, but it's a lot of time. And other things are going by the wayside. Doing budgets at 2 o'clock in the morning at home, not sustainable.
You're up anyway.
I'm up anyway now. That's true.
You got the pager on.
That's true. Inspection investigations kind of go along with fire prevention. The OSHA's emergency response rule, that is, I'm not sure where that's going to be headed with the new administration. If that goes into effect, it is going to have a significant impact on fire services throughout the country. I think we'd be better off than most, especially if we add this position, because we can do a lot of pre-planning before that goes into play. The difference with this emergency response rule is it's based upon OSHA safety standards from 1980, and instead of doing a small incremental increase, they're basically bringing it up to 2000 standards in one fell swoop, 2018 standards in one fell swoop.
What's a couple examples of?
So the response rule by itself, and I think I had shared it with pretty much everyone, is they incorporate by reference a lot of NFPA standards, which NFPA standards by themselves don't mean diddly. because they're just recommendations, but because now they're incorporated into the standard, there's a big headache in coming into compliance. The biggest one is
What's
training.
NAPA?
And National Fire Protection Association rather. So they do like a lot of the, best practices. This is what you should do if you can. It's not law.
So a lot of that is adopted into the bill.
So some of that is, but not when we talk about fire department administration, training standards, all this tracking. That now is incorporated, or will be incorporated by reference, which is, I think it's going to change a little bit because there's a ton of pushback. These small departments in the Midwest, they have 6 firefighters total. There's no way they'd be able to accommodate a lot of these standards. So that is a big one. Continuity of operations, I should be able to drop dead today, and the fire station should not miss a beat. They should just peel my name off the door, put somebody else's name on the door, and that's not the case. And we're the only department in town that doesn't have a second person in a leadership or a continuity of operations role.
When you say you don't have, is there somebody there who you kind of figure, well,
They could probably figure it out.
yeah.
We have wonderful, smart, and this is nothing against the
Yeah.
crew that we have, because they're great. The problem is they're all on shift work too, so they work 24 hours, 24 on, 24 off, 24 on. They have 5 days off, so to have any continuity of some of these administrative tasks doesn't happen.
This is an outside hire.
This is either an outside hire, or if somebody wanted to come off of shift work
I see.
and then backfill them. It's a big lift, because a lot of people have, they have a second job because they have 5 days off. So this is going to be your primary gig now to do this. And from a human standpoint, I need help. I'm trying my hardest to keep all the balls in the air. It's getting significantly harder to do that.
So what type of salary is a deputy?
So I put in 115,000. When I looked at the other area departments, I look at Hamilton, Wenham, and Ipswich. I think they're the closest comparables. They're anywhere between 115 and 125. So I think
Is that just the salary?
that's the salary. And that person would have the ability to, if they come back, they wouldn't be overtime, they'd be salaried, so they do get comp time. We can work on things to optimize the way we do them. So nearby towns that have them, pretty much everybody. And then I also went a little bit further in all the different reports that have been done on the fire department from a management standpoint over the years. I took the comparable towns, they all have them as well. So it's not unique to, we wouldn't be doing something unprecedented either.
So Chief, when I look at the presentation we have in the budget presentation we were given on page 50, I see 2 new firefighter positions. I find this a confusing presentation.
I wouldn't use this at all, to be honest.
So there's 16 full-time firefighters.
So I heard.
In the current budget and in the new budget as well. So there's no change in firefighters.
So, and then there are 1 captain and 4 lieutenants also?
No, so that's
That
part of it.
includes the 16.
There's the 16.
That's part of,
Okay,
that's part of
well,
the 16.
Yeah, so if you look down at that, those firefighters, they said 1 new floater position was from fiscal year
Yep.
22
Yep.
and 1 from fiscal year 23. So that's old.
That's all.
So we haven't added anybody recently.
okay. Well, I don't seem to have it.
We have a different number
Yeah, I see the
here
names.
for total salaries.
Right.
You showed what, in your presentation, you showed
Part of what?
This was the
1.788.
one.
And we're showing 1.71.
The spreadsheet you
No,
showed?
I don't think I
Yeah,
So I was wondering what's the-
I sent you the spreadsheet.
Today?
No,
A while ago.
Is this what's
Yeah.
the date?
About a week ago.
last week.
Last
Oh, that's good.
12.
That was very good.
Oh, so that's the newest
Let me
one.
take a look. Okay.
So this is with the, this is with the 115. So if I take
Oh, so,
115.
yes, yeah, then you'll get the number you have.
Right, but you showed in your presentation 1788,
17,
right there, the 1788.
that was, I think that's with the,
Yeah, that's what Rick is saying to him, that different than what.
you have 1745. 40.
So
Andy?
while he's looking at
Do me a
that,
favor
let's
and send me a copy. I just don't think I have it.
discuss a little bit about this deputy chief,
So
what
the,
our thoughts are.
the other thing.
If we're not gonna be able to vote on this budget tonight, because it's gonna need to be final.
But one of the things that the chief was talking about,
January.
business continuation, gets
28.
hit by the beer truck, right? So there's somebody to step in.
Go back and check.
Is there any perceived value on session planning with this deputy as well?
Well, it needs to be more than just that,
Well,
in my opinion.
On January 28.
I mean, I certainly think improvement in fire prevention are beneficial. I certainly feel, and this might not even be contemplated, but I feel somehow the fire department should be keeping records of the smoke detector that they inspect and know when they're going to expire. I mean, I had, you know, 15 smoking detectors installed in 2018. They're good for 10 years. But 10 years is a long time for somebody to remember,
I just,
unless they're going to start beeping. I don't know, they're 20 feet up high in the ceiling. I hope they don't start beeping. So I don't know if a deputy chief would help in that type of area when you talk about fire prevention.
So, I mean, I think the follow-up on things like that would be a lot better. There's no follow-up on things like that now because we just don't have the bandwidth to do it. The other thing is going back data-wise, that stuff wasn't computerized.
Right.
Now we're starting to put stuff in so we have a better, record-keeping system to get to. So those and, fire prevention is the big one. And again, continuity of operations is another one. And, for like a fire like that we had, granted, you look at probabilities, right? Because numbers and probabilities, and you look at it that way. I look at it, thankfully my wife's a forgiving person, but I had a newborn 2 days. That was the second day home. And if I didn't go in, there was going to be no chief officer going in. So that, I don't want to say it's not fair, but there's got to be a little bit of break somewhere.
Well, it's a big ask.
And a lot of people ask, what's the difference between our fire department and somebody else's fire department? We hear the word, Cadillac versus a Ford, and I look at it. What do our residents expect from the fire department versus somebody else? So I look at our fire department as when somebody calls 911, they expect somebody to be there in a quick time. Our response time are very good and do that consistently all the time. They don't care if they're the second person to call 911 in a row. They want the same care as the first person to call 911 in a row. And if you go to some of the other departments that don't look at those things or they don't have the ability to address those things, those are the people that it's a 15, 16, 17-minute response time, which sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it takes it's a life-changing 16 or 17. And I think all these things kind of play into it. A day deputy also allows us to adjust our shift strength during the day and potentially bring down those overtime costs or adjust those so we can say, hey, you know what, we can fill the night more and keep the 4 people, things like that. So I think it gives us, flexibility.
So could you drop firefighter during the day and just have them on the night?
So, could I drop a firefighter? Oh, just have them assigned to a night shift?
You're 3 on during the day and 4 on at night, is that what you're saying?
Because you'd have you and the deputy.
Right,
on
so I
during the
don't
day.
know contractually, that would all, we'd have to figure that out. I don't want to say yes, so anything's a possibility. There's a lot of different hurdles, so I don't want to give a false sense of support. But on the other side, those guys are all doing something during the day. This person is supposed to help the stuff that's not getting done. So we're not fixing anything, we're just
Defeating
shifting.
purpose, maybe.
Yes. But I think, there are opportunities there that, for storm coverage, maybe the deputy doesn't work Thursday, Friday, they work Saturday, Sunday because they're having storm, things like that.
Right.
I think, you can be creative that way, thinking outside the box.
Yeah, that's an easy.
I think that's easier. And the other thing too is the fire service is just like any other, everyone's looking for help. So if you make a job, like if we went back to, let's say, a floater system, no one wants that job because there's 20 other fire departments in the area hiring. They're going to pick one where they can have a consistent schedule that they can plan out. So we have to make it,
Have to compete.
yes, we have to be competitive. And I would be shocked, I'd be shocked if the operational audit, when it comes back, if it doesn't recommend having a deputy. I'd literally be shocked if that's part of that.
I had one concern is to hire a new one. Your workload is probably going to be increased due to training him. Versus if you could look at maybe promoting from within, and then we can backfill that position.
Well, you could.
That's my hope. My
Right.
hope is we keep it in because that helps morale because they see that upward motion. And because a lot of it, that's why I left Manchester 20 years ago is I wasn't going anywhere for the better part of 15 years. So I went to a city and then came back. But that's why, but if they see that, hey, you know what, there are some steps of this ladder that are attainable, you're going to keep people and that's going to save us a ton of money from onboarding and overtime costs in those times.
I think that the
That's a problem
challenge
we
from
have.
hiring within is you're taking a person who works 2 days a week and has a second job to be working full-time, and the pay difference does not equate to giving up a second job. But it
I
may
think
be
I think there may be some interest.
okay, yeah,
I don't want to speak for
Sure.
anybody, but I think there
Yeah.
may be internal interest. And
Right.
I think there are other, it's nice being home at night,
right,
And
that's
not-
true.
there's some benefits to having a quote unquote, I don't want to say
Regular
normal
job.
job, a regular job.
Yeah,
So, depending on what people's, work-life balance is, I think that plays.
Chief, at one point we were talking about the SAFER grant
Yep.
and buying a couple of years
Yep.
using that strategy. Not permanent, doesn't replace a position.
Yeah.
Is that still in play?
So it is, again, with the changing of the guard in Washington, I'm not sure what the grant situation is going to look like. I think the SAFER grant is a great option, especially we know just based upon age, we're going to have 2 retirements in the next 5 years. And if we are able to get that SAFER grant, the one thing that's nice about the grants is there's no match and you don't have to keep them past the grant. So we could bring on 4 people and then we lose some through attrition, things like that. So it's a great onboarding opportunity. I also look at it is, let me go through, I have the SAFER grant already up there. I also look at it as we need to start really looking at shared services. And I think the first domino has to drop somewhere. And I think shared services are important. One, because call firefighters, we're extremely lucky right now, but I don't think that's going to be sustainable a decade, just with the changing of, I see how my kids are and, what the generations coming up are like. And I think with the cost of fire trucks, I mean, an ambulance, a Ford pickup truck with a tin body on the back is $500,000. Like, it's absolutely insane. So, we should be looking in the future at how we could, do some shared services with some of the smaller towns. And I think, if we had that SAFER grant, that would give us the ability to do a little bit more with some of our neighbors as a trial because it's not costing us anything. And if we actually have solid numbers, instead of us giving, instead of me giving you my best guess of what those numbers would be, hey, we had 3 years that we actually had 4 people in the station all the time, here are the results.
Have we had conversations with other smaller towns about their shared fire service
We've,
or ambulance services?
Exploratory
there we
conversations.
go.
I think that's what we heard last year.
Yeah, it's gonna be a slow process.
So one of the,
Generation.
we're looking at maybe doing some EMS sharing potentially. There's some other things that we can do slowly to start that first domino. Because we want it to be a cohesive union, if you will, versus.
Will we do anything this year in one of those dominoes?
There's a potential, yeah.
What are a couple of the barriers to? I mean,
level of service that we have versus level of service that some
we had to share that we might have a little less service.
little less service, and then whatever other town might have to come up a little bit. So it's finding a happy medium.
Anything else?
That's the biggest struggle is you have communities that are still relying on a call force. They've got a great gig going. They're doing really well.
Yes.
So they're loath to
Financially.
change that. Financially, they're doing really well. The problem is when that runs dry, they're going to be hurt. So
And the quality of service, responsiveness, what have you, that they're getting with the call method is apparently,
it's fine.
it's
It's fine.
okay,
It's okay.
more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I call it rolling the dice. It's, you look at the storms and they're proactive, where even the people with the call departments are hiring, they're putting 2 people on during the day. On the weekends, they have people that are on a stipend to do, so that they're having some stopgaps measures. But they're also, all of them are looking at adding FTEs in the near future because they see the writing.
FTE, what is that?
Full-time,
I see.
equivalent, yeah.
Thank you.
So the addition of this deputy, would that come into play, say, with the town in Essex in terms of administration or office?
Potentially. I don't want to speak out of turn, but it gives us the ability to offer something up. Because right now I don't have the bandwidth to offer anything. The duck is,
Yeah.
the feet of the duck are going like crazy.
I'm just reluctant to add a person to Manchester in order to provide services to another.
Right, that's not our current reason.
Right, yeah.
And that's not the reason for this position. If
No.
anything, that would be if we had that safer grant, we would have the ability to do it for free and then see, we have real data to look at. Is it beneficial?
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that that's the reason to do the hire. It was just looking for additional.
Yeah. So I think, overall, I think those are the main two things. The deputy is just so we can keep the forward progress. We've made a lot of progress in the year and a half. To keep that and actually get down into the weeds and really optimize the services that we offer, and some of the ones that we should be offering that we don't. And then if we are lucky enough to get that SAFER grant, it's like hitting the lottery. That gives us the opportunity to actually explore these shared services for no cost for 4 years.
I think the SAFER grant is useful in that regard, but I don't hear enough action really on sharing services to take a step with another position. But
So-
it's not that I'm against the
Yeah.
position, but I just don't. I think that the SAFER is the thing that maybe put us over the hurdle to really share some significant services.
Yes, I agree. So the deputy, I'm not tying the deputy to shared services.
I know you're not,
Yeah.
but I am.
Oh, okay,
To
okay.
me, in my mind,
Yeah.
that it's adding more to a big department already,
Mhm.
and I don't know what that shared services would look like. I don't know where conversations are really. I hear hesitance is what I hear.
I think the deputy should be looked at unrelated to any shared services.
Yes.
Agreed.
I don't share that view.
Okay. I would be unwilling to vote for a deputy if it was for the purpose of enabling us to do shared services. That's where I come from.
Well, I share that view.
So,
I-
Chief, go ahead.
I'd like to add the deputy. I see the need. I don't like adding another 115 to this 44 that we're already increasing. So I would look to try to, instead of adding one, making one of these firefighter, the 76-8, make that the 115, and maybe backfill that next year, and maybe bump up the overtime a little to make it work, just so that we don't get the full 115 next year, that we spread it out a little bit more down the road.
I think that's all complicated.
Well, it really hurts the staffing, right? You don't,
Can we make that work?
you would put yourself where you're gonna have two on.
Well, contractually, we can't. So we'd have to backfill. So whatever group, you say group
Right, so
one,
you're
somebody
over-
moves up,
you're overtime.
anytime somebody takes a vacation or out sick or a personal on that group,
You got the
it's
overtime.
automatically going to trigger overtime. Right now, we have a buffer that one person's out, we go from 4 to 3.
Right.
And that's why we're on
So I guess we
track
could
for
I guess we
overtime.
could do the math on that, what that would cost.
Yeah, just do,
I have a question on this. We say contractually we can't. And for a number of years, we've talked about 3 people on, floaters, bringing it to 4. Are we at a situation now where we are 4 contractually and we can't change from that?
we're 4 and we drop.
Okay.
But if we were at 3 and if we did that, that example, one group would be at 3 all the time, so every vacation day would trigger.
Right.
Call out sick or whatever.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Andy?
Well, I also see the need for a position just to kind of support some of the load that the chief is currently carrying. That flexibility is good. I always get a little frustrated when I bump it. It's kind of contractual kind of obligation because we're all just people trying to do a job, right? But it's what it is.
What are your thoughts, Gar?
I think that we are saddled with the responsibility to make sure that town government is as efficient and cost effective as it can be. I don't think anybody has told us try to improve services in town. We're not satisfied, and maybe it's because you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning doing the budget, but so be it. I'm sorry, but I don't think we're in the business of improving services. I think we're in the business of trying to make sure that we're cost effective and that we limit our costs and figure out ways to maybe improve the service without having our costs drive upward. So I would say that we need to look again and maybe there is a more complicated application of our existing labor force that could allow for a deputy, and maybe for some reduced coverage during certain periods. So I guess if it were simply we're going to leave things as they are and add 115,000 to the costs, I would not be supportive of that idea. If there were a further permutation of what we're doing that would allow, maybe it's a portion of the 115 to assure continuity. And I'm the most dramatic statement I've heard is that our chief may be running out of steam a little bit. That grabs me more than, the juggling of hours. So that was a long answer for not much
So if I
context.
can, so the 115 currently, if you look at, so we've had some step increases and new people coming in. So there is a little bit of, I want to say fluff. There's about 35,000 in there. Subtract that out, so it'd be about 80-something thousand increase in the salary line item.
If you have a deputy chief, do you still need a captain?
So there is, yeah, the answer is yes. And the reason being is having this chain of command go down, there's a lot of things that the captain can deal with from a line firefighter standpoint, stuff I don't even want to hear about. I don't want to, I say, you never want to go to the principal's office if your guidance counselor can take care of it. So there's a lot of things that Captain Carpenter deals with that I don't even see, hear, or frankly want to
shouldn't.
know about. So yes, there's a real need for that.
But what is the relation between the deputy and the captain? I don't.
So the
I'm a
captain-
little lost in what
Well,
you're saying.
So the captain, so every group, there's 4 working groups.
Yep.
One group has a captain and 3 firefighters. The other groups have a lieutenant, 3 firefighters.
Okay, I got it.
So those lieutenants, it gives if there's a firefighter has a problem, they go to their officer.
Yep.
If it can't be resolved, then they go to the captain,
Yep.
or whatever it gets to be. So
Yep.
they're on shift work. The deputy, it would be out of the union, number one. So it gives me a little bit of, hey, let's bounce some ideas off of one another and, how do we think outside the box? And it also, they're on day shift, so you get the continuity of dealing with the public, and we can actually start a project and finish it without a 5-day break all the time.
And so the captain deals with union issues, I'm assuming.
Union issues, he's been helping with fire prevention stuff as much as he can, but again, he's limited based upon the work cycle. Which is not his, he devotes a lot of time and, he's up until wee hours doing stuff as well.
He's a union member,
Yeah, so I'm the only besides the call firefighters, I'm the only
and the deputy chief
not.
that's created, that would be none.
So that really is one of the real important pieces in this equation.
The captain.
That's the continuity piece.
It's only a $4,000 difference. or
Yeah,
something.
it's not,
Not huge money.
Right.
I think step 2 might be like 9 or 10 maybe at the,
It depends on what stuff.
yes, yeah. But it's not exorbitant.
So I echo what Dara was saying about concern about burnout for a chief. I think it's been doing a great job. I question, there are additional things like fire prevention. You were saying there's nobody asking for additional services, but I don't think anybody knows that that's not being done. Right? So I think we have to add that conversation into this debate as well.
I don't know whether this group is authorized to do level of service judgments. Maybe we need a little more input. Not that we're not getting great input from the chief, but for us to decide in our budgetary conversations that we think the level of service that the fire department has been providing should be upgraded. Maybe that's not our job.
No, I
they say,
think our job is regarding the budget.
Okay.
So if we feel from a financial standpoint, it would make sense to add a deputy,
Okay.
then it's up to the select board to ultimately decide whether that's added or not, right?
Ours is just
You
a,
recommend.
ours is just a recommendation.
Yeah.
But it is,
Yeah.
but it is
Thank you.
specific to, understanding those levels of service and
Yeah.
kind of making then a financial judgment.
Yeah. The bang for the buck.
And I think there's another bit, we're looking at a wider range. It's not just the fire department. thinking about, where are other priorities relative to
Absolutely.
tax capabilities and all the rest. So those conversations also deeply influence my view. We've added a couple of people to this department within the year, and I think we've been adding to the department quite a bit over the last few years in order to build the four team. So they all play in my judgment about where this fits. It's a hard judgment, but I don't think we're there yet.
What are your thoughts, Mike?
So I'm struggling with this one. I will say as a manager and somebody who runs a company, when I hear somebody say they're steaming out, burning out, I get worried. And I will say, I think you've done an absolutely amazing job. I mean, I pull up your monthly reports and look at them, and you have transformed this department, which is key. But I am worried about the burnout factor. On the other hand, I've been long enough in the tooth on this committee that we have struggled with trying to find comparable metrics of other communities that do this. And to Gar's point, the level of service in Manchester is high. I would say it is exquisite. We have found a really hard time finding other like communities that are even comparing. And when people look at fire departments as career fire departments, those tend to be big cities, municipalities, whatever. Manchester's in that crowd. And, seeing Newbury up there, we used to live in Newbury, it's a very family-oriented, sit around the campfire, but it's different than where we are. And 115K on top of 1.7 million and benefits, I just think that's a hard sell with other things going on. So my recommendation would be we try to grow this from within. And I'm always talking about the denominator problem. We have 4 on, but what do we always need 4 on? Could we do 3 on a little more? And if we could figure out how to do this with somebody in-house and work around the edges, and maybe we have to eat a little more overtime, I think that would be a better financial solution going forward than trying to absorb a 115 to 125K nut with benefits on top of that. That's why we get the big bucks to sit up here and deal with this. I mean, we're looking at the whole town, and the numbers are, quite frankly, staggering when you look at this budget. So that's what we're, through that lens. But I will finish by saying I think you've done an absolutely amazing job. Your reports, your focus on the important things, consistency of capital recommendations we have not had that in a long time. We appreciate that. So
I'd like to ask one more question. Do you think the people that are in your department like their jobs or not so much?
I think we've had a vast improvement of job satisfaction as of.
Great.
Does that mean somebody's not going to go on to a
No,
bigger
of
department?
course.
No, but
Right,
I'm a
right.
lot less worried now than I was when I walked in the door.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations.
So what my suggestion is that we get this fire department budget, 2 scenarios, the detail, one with the deputy, one without. And also understand what the impact will be on the tax rate with and without the deputy. And have the fire chief look at the budget to see if there's any other place that we could save money if we brought on a deputy.
And I'd like to add to that, please. I'd like to hear a little bit more about Maury's comment a moment ago, that being grow it from in the department.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think, is picking up from something from across the room. But is there something creative we can do here, which is not 115 plus 30% benefits or whatever it is, that can help us in transition? I think Maury's at an important piece to the equation here and how to think about this.
So I mean, I think there is a plausible way of going about that. We can go in and just give our best estimate of what our overtime would look like, given worst, I would say like worst case scenario if, everyone used their vacation and, the average amount of sick days that are used in a calendar year, what that would add to the overtime budget. And kind of give that scenario as well. I think it's plausible. Is that my best? Does that give me a warm and fuzzy? No, because I'm trying to the best we can is make sure that we have the 4 people there so we can go in on all these fires and all these. Anytime we have to put air on, because that's when the department runs seamlessly with 4. Like if we got to that point that there's 4 there all the time, we're not getting any. I mean, yeah, we get the CSDs and the other things that are potentials down the road, but that gives Manchester. We can do everything we need to do for a century going forward, unless all of a sudden there's high rises going up all over the place. But that would give us our stability. And the department, you can ask anyone within the department, 3 on duty versus 4. It's night and day with the services we can do, especially with those simultaneous calls. So that's my little worry about doing, kind of going on the outside is those simultaneous calls then get harder to deal with because now we're sending a single person to those. We're now, just shy of 60% of the time we have 4 people on duty. We can handle 2 calls in town, no problem. We don't have to wait for somebody coming from the Rockport Closter. That's my only hesitance on that. I'll certainly, get the numbers and certainly, analyze that, but that would be my worry in that kind of idea.
How are we this year with the, are we about 50,000, the overtime budget?
Yeah, we're,
He gave us that.
That was one of the
Yeah.
things we threw ahead of the game.
so we are right there. So we spent 61, we got a balance of 30, so we're 61%, 61.95%. But that's also the bump that we see with the 4th of July. So if you took the 4th of July, like next year, we've had the same overtime expend, we'd be right on the mark.
So that's a realistic number.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Greg?
Well, I don't expect you to answer this
Okay.
tonight, but as an alternative,
Mhm.
I know it's not first choice, but are there alternatives to reducing your work? In other words, can we contract out for something? I'm making this up. Inspectional services. Is there any way to do that, to get that off your plate?
I've never heard of it being done. It doesn't mean it can't. I would have to.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm spitballing a little bit here.
Creative thought.
Yeah, it is. Just, speaking off the cuff, the problem with, at the end of the day, the liability still falls on me as authority having jurisdiction for anything that those outsourced people do.
Right.
So I still have to monitor their activities because I'm still on the hook for their decision. So that would be my only,
Yeah,
it might take away the having to go out to do the inspection, but I still have to make sure they're doing their job correctly. So it's moving from one bucket to another. But I've never heard of it being done, or if there's even a company that does it.
I don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
And maybe that was a bad example.
No, I mean,
I don't know if there are, when you look through your long list of things that you're trying to keep those plates spinning.
Yeah.
Is there something that someone else could do?
Well, you said, for instance, you get a lot of calls from, somebody on X street. Hey, Chief, I want to talk to you about, maybe there's somebody in town hall who can kind of be the first stop for those calls.
my Christmas card list is going to get shorter and shorter. If I do that.
But, we have some, I'm thinking about a person, I'm not going to mention a name, but we have some very capable communicators in town hall.
Yep.
And, maybe there's a liaison or I don't know what you call it or something that could take, a couple of hours out of your week. That would help. at least.
Yeah, I mean,
In any event.
I guess some of those, that would help on some of them. Other ones are more, you gotta have somebody with that subject matter
Yeah,
expertise to answer that
professional
question.
expertise, right,
Um,
right, that wouldn't work.
So some of them, you might be able to do some, but
Yeah.
it's still a large variety that you're dealing with the fire marshal's office.
So sort of on that same vein, police, we farm out a person part-time, that sounds really mechanical, as a safety resource officer in the school. Do you ever do that with firefighters in other communities? And where I'm going with this is, if you have somebody in the department right now who could graduate to being deputy chief, could we fill that missing slot by sharing that responsibility with another town? And I know this gets probably really
No, that's too
complicated,
complicated, Maury.
but
It
goes-
does, and I hate to say it, to Andy's point, it comes back to a contractual thing that,
Yeah.
that would create another huge.
Yeah, but it moves us towards the ballgame of this sharing that I think is so very important. And you've emphasized also get that momentum towards
So
getting over those hurdles.
There are a few things that I'm working on that aren't, good for public release as of yet.
I
But
understand.
there are some
I
small
don't
little
think-
snowballs.
I
that
don't
we're-
think we should be continuing conversations in this line, in this meeting, at this point in time.
I guess I just want to support the fact that I think we're all trying to look for a solution, including Greg's thoughts.
Mhm.
We're trying
Oh,
to support
absolutely.
your position,
I appreciate it.
and I think I've heard of ideas that may offer some thought on that.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much.
And, as always, come by, have a cup of coffee and,
That'll take more of your time.
you know.
I think he sees that as an investment.
But, exactly.
give us a checklist.
I think that, the sharing of narrative on a bunch of different topics helps us move forward. There's things here I picked up that, hey, it's a good idea to look at and to kind of research. There's positives and negatives.
Could you weigh in on the status of the fire hydrants? Like I know the one the other night was frozen,
Yeah.
and that there's a percentage that freeze or that leak.
Yeah.
Do we have enough in one area, like a different ones that don't freeze, that they're all right? Or
So it's kind of a luck of the draw, if you will. We're very fortunate, especially with some of the most recent upgrades that have occurred throughout town, that we have a pretty good water source, especially in the downtown area and moving out. There's still a couple areas that they're working on. I want to give kudos to the water department, because when we regional dispatch called them, said, hey, there's a fire. They get on their computers, they turn valves, and they move water pressure from one area to another, and made a significant difference. So, I think I sent the letter to you and the select board, but the cooperation between all the town departments on that was, awesome. It was like clockwork. I didn't even have to ask; it was already done. And police department, DPW, water department. I mean, everything was just done in succinct fashion.
Who pays for new fire hydrants? The department. Because I think you weren't at the meeting when DPW was here, talked a little bit about the frozen. And he said that there was one type of hydrant, Pier Point or
flaw.
something, I could
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
wrong, that was known for freezing. Because it goes down here and it gets stuck in the little pan, and then it works its way up when it freezes.
No, more importantly, because it's leaking.
Yeah, right, it's leaking and not
And
draining back.
I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if there's some type of plan to replace whatever those fire hydrants, name of those fire hydrants are that are prone to freezing.
No, I haven't heard that Chuck has that as a plan. I mean, he does typically replace them when he's replacing the water line.
Right.
And they do preventative stuff. They go by, like that hydrant was actually, I think it was the following day it was due for its normal, they pump it out, test it, and so there's a normal routine
Yeah.
process. I mean, New York City assigns 2 engine companies to every borough, and their only job is to go around the city during cold weather and thaw hydrants. They have a big torch and they put basically a tent over the hydrant, heat it up and move on to the next one. So I'll take 6 extra guys if you want. That as well.
They just melt them out, I
Flush
guess.
our hydrants, which is, a lot of towns don't do that, but, you know, our flushing is a pretty good thing.
Aren't fire hydrants the job of a deputy?
Yeah, I can add that too. I like how you think.
But that is sort of a good question, Greg, is my recollection was we changed out about 6 hydrants a year in town, but that's data point from way, way back. And if you're doing like Pleasant Street, you're probably replacing many more because you've got everything open.
Right.
But, you know, what is kind of the long-term hydrant replacement plan around town? And, you know, that's probably something to think about here.
Don't have the answer to that one.
Yeah.
Let me just back on that one.
Anybody have any other questions of the chief? Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for enduring our question.
That's it.
You go to bed early tonight.
Oh, I don't know about that. We'll see. Maybe for a couple hours.
It's your turn to feed the baby.
Yeah.
So we'll circle back around on this. We also have to think about that change in the emergency management.
Thanks, Chief.
Have a good night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
And my struggle is when we're making a lot of changes in the budget, kind of lose sight of
Yeah, we'll make sure you get it.
bigger
Yep.
picture,
Yep.
impact on the tax rate.
Is the number in the budget the number we should be thinking about? I know you've got some corrections to make, or is that a different,
What number are you talking about?
the salary budget for fire?
No, I believe that's correct.
1.713.
1.713, I think is correct.
Right, except for whatever
Correct.
happens on the debt.
Now, he did mention that there may be some additional cushion there because of some new hires versus old.
It could be adjusted out.
We'll double
It
check
should
those
have been
numbers.
Okay.
35.
Yeah, he indicated that 35. I hadn't heard that before, so
You're not sure where it comes from.
we can rerun those numbers to see.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
Is the
So
link
it's-
running? The ClearGov?
No,
No.
Yeah, Andrew, do you have an update on ClearGov? We haven't talked about that.
Because that's where it's being updated, right? Well, yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, it's taken way longer than expected because it started off as a upgrade or like an enhancement to like a total migration. So I actually had a meeting with them today and like we're getting very close. I set up meetings for the next 2 Wednesdays just so we can finish this up soon so you get access to it shortly.
does that have any relationship to the fact that the permit software's been down for close to a week?
No, so the permit software is OpenGov and
Yeah,
our
two
budget
different-
software is
two different-
ClearGov.
Two different companies, yeah. That's been down for 2 weeks.
It's been down since the middle of last week. The only reason I know, Greg, is because I have construction going on next to me, and the last time I checked, the building permit had not yet been issued.
You've been saying that for years.
Hell.
This is the other side.
The personal side.
And, I'm assuming they got permission to do the foundation, but I'm just kind of waiting to see when I make a call.
As a concerned citizen.
As a concerned citizen, to ask for a check on the project. Has it been approved? Or could be approved and it's not in the software. I don't know. Okay. Discussion of revenue projections. I don't have much. Andrea did give me all the historical revenue things, and she had done a 5-year average, I did a 2-year average, and I did a percentage, and it looks to me like rather than using 95%, we might want to use a higher percent.
Yeah, I
There's
think
very little,
Yep.
change in it, so I need to look at that a little more. I think the other thing that, I did receive a copy of the investments, which I forgot to send to
I
you.
was just gonna ask that.
Yes.
And where have we
As a-
gotten to on that, on Tom's effort there? That,
That's where it's
oh,
at.
okay, you have something.
Jennifer just sent me the value of the assets, as of 12/31. But I had a brief conversation with Andrea and Jennifer, and I'm still a little bit confused. So there's a large portion of the town assets in money market fund, which are our general operating revenues, and the earnings on those vary greatly from year to year based on how much cash we keep on hand. And she was indicating that recently our cash has been on the low side because of large projects that have come through needing to be paid. But I remember a conversation last year on the fringes of my memory, that, and I'm hoping, Andrea, you might be able to help me on this, explain it to people. That line item for investment earning, does that include a strange number from the reserve account assets that we don't really have to spend?
You're talking about the general fund investment income and the local estimated receipts, correct?
Yeah, I'm talking about the investment income line in the, in the local receipts section. What is included in that?
That is just interest income. So it really should say interest income, not investment income.
It just.
Because it does not include anything from the stabilization fund or,
Or the
anything like
reserves?
that.
Okay.
But the investment income different from year to year strikes me if it's money market. Change is too big.
Well, what Jennifer, the treasurer, said is we have significant discrepancies from year to year in the amount of cash we might have in a given account.
So it's
at
the
any
corpus
point in
of the
time.
account that's earning the interest change, not the interest.
Correct, that's what I believe, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And then apparently.
Because I'm recalling when Mike and I were talking about this in the last year before, I recall seeing a pie chart that included something other than just strictly money market.
And that's the stabilization, but she's
Right.
saying that's not in that line we're
Got it.
looking at.
Okay.
Which
So
is what I thought
It's the
it was.
pool that's earning the asset, the interest, that's changing, causing that difference, not the interest rate itself.
Is that right, Andrea?
I believe the interest rate has changed slightly, but we do have 4 different bank accounts that handle our money markets. So technically we have 4 banks, 4 accounts with money markets that have slightly different rates. I was just looking at this fiscal year so far, we have about 10 million and we've gotten 200,000, so if at like 2% on average. So I have to look into like what exactly the interest rates have been, which I'll have to work with Jen on.
Okay. Is there a way you can look at a history of the average accounts we carry or something? Is there any way to tell why it might be such a discrepancy from year to year?
Yes, I actually just started compiling what the bank balances were for the past, I've done like last 2 years or so.
Okay.
And I just need to match it up with the interest rates just to see why it's up and down.
Okay, great.
And the other question that came up, I'm recalling as well, was the use of the Massachusetts Municipal Depository Trusts, which I also recall we weren't utilizing, it was something other, these separate bank accounts that we
Yeah,
utilized?
but that's for the stabilization account. That's not in this investment income line.
Okay, so in the investment income line, then we're not using that MMDT,
No, you're not.
No.
but that is something that's available to us.
It is.
It is.
And is there a greater rate earned on that trust?
No, we've actually been doing a little bit better than that, and also with MMDT, it's harder to get our cash out of that than it is for some of the local banks that we have.
Okay.
So, and we also have, it covered with insurance, like DIF, SIF, things like that, where Mass Municipal, I don't believe I have to look at that, has it covered it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrew.
So what's the next step on this conversation?
Andrea's working on looking at the historical balances, and she's going to work with Jen to get the updated interest rate to re-verify that line that's included in the revenues.
So to go all the
I
way
think
back,
if we want to have a discussion on the investments in the stabilization account, that's something we can do some other time in the year outside of the budget process.
Yeah, that would be good.
but I think your efforts to create a factor that we apply is a very worthwhile thing to do.
Right,
It might just not apply to this investment account.
exactly,
That's all.
right.
That's why I was asking what was the next step. 'Cause
Yeah, and I think once Andrea has her information, maybe we can come up with some guideline on that line item too.
I think that'd be
Not
that'd
real
be
specific.
very useful, I think.
But, because that's a big number that vacillates. We don't want to overestimate. Not going to keep much money on it. That means a lot. Do you have any updates for us, Greg?
Health insurance is not looking good.
Okay.
At the conference last week, they announced the range. We will get our number in another week or so, hopefully by the end of next week. I don't think I'll have it for next meeting, but probably the one after that. So we had plugged in a 10% increase. I am expecting it to be closer to 15%.
Okay.
The range is 10 to 15, with the average being 15. 10 to 20, with the average being 15. We should be a little below average. Our utilization rate has been pretty good so far this year. So I'm hoping we come in a little below that 15%, but it's certainly going to be higher than 10.
So you're expecting we would have that available on 219?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The operational audit, I was hoping to get it today. So it didn't come, but hopefully tomorrow. I've seen a rough draft, and the overall conclusion is that he feels that we're too lean in many of our operations. We're very efficient, but he feels we're hurting our effectiveness because of being so lean in some departments.
From a personnel standpoint?
Personnel standpoint, yep. For example, not having more HR professional hours. Having, just having basically one principal person in so many departments. Accounting, treasurer, collector, assessors, there's no bench in town hall. Town hall particularly, yeah. He is expressing a fair amount of concern about not having a bench. That if something were to happen to Andrea, for example, we would be in a bad spot. We would be pressed very hard to find someone quickly. It would be very difficult.
So is your thought to, once you receive that, to put together some type of a plan?
Yes.
Where you might
We're not going to do everything at
enhance
once.
things, over time?
It's going to be a 5-year plan.
Okay,
to correct some of these deficiencies. And we need to talk about what we think are the highest priorities.
Right, yeah.
And yes, the chief is correct. He will say that having a deputy is one of those areas. But we also have public safety is one area we, as Roy commented, we are head and shoulders above our comparable towns. So that's the tension that we have.
Exactly.
It sounds like, you know, with a town this size, the way to get a better bench would be to have people wearing more hats than to get more people. I think that would be a big focus on how to solve that.
Well, I view part of the issue as being that we have a person heading a department, and then we have an administrative person, and it's too big a gap.
Exactly. So that administrative person you could beef up.
Right.
So they become an assistant rather than an assistant to. So that's one.
Yeah.
That's an area that would not be that difficult to correct.
Right.
I think that's probably the lower hanging fruit that we probably address sooner in the order of things.
Right.
To improve that bench. We're at that awkward size, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're small, so it's hard to justify, but we have all the challenges that a town of double our size has. You know, it's having 5,000 versus 10,000 doesn't really change the workload that much, but it's harder to justify it when you're 5,000 and not 10,000.
And it's tough to merge with Gloucester.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we're a ward for Gloucester, right? You know, but we have all the challenges, many of the similar challenges. Not quite the same, but
yeah,
you get my point.
Yeah.
We get you.
You've probably thought about this, but you know, who are our nearest trading partners, and how far would you reach to do that? And I'm thinking more things like building inspector, animal control. You know, start at one level and then you graduate to the more demanding roles. But how far would you? And I don't know the answer to this, but you know, Hamilton, Wenham. You know, would you reach out to Topsfield? Would you reach out to Roveland? Would you reach out to Newburyport? Is that too far away, or is a lot of this remote enough that some of it you could do? You thought about it that way.
I really think of neighboring communities.
So basically touching communities.
I mean, you know, maybe in Ipswich, but probably wouldn't go any further than that. In terms of sharing personnel. Yeah.
I just think you have to be careful how much personnel you share.
Absolutely.
You know,
Sure.
it's you lose control. I mean, animal control has worked.
Right.
Fine, my understanding.
I
Animal
grabbed
control
that
is
as an
working pretty
example.
well.
Pretty responsive, I guess.
Veteran service is certainly working fine. That's a pretty
Yeah,
minimal lift in town. We have the conservation agent that we're sharing with Hamilton. Jury is, we'll see. Hopefully, this new person will be able to do it. It's a stretch.
For
Building inspection.
somebody like,
Building inspector, we have part time. He's full time in Rockport.
for a technical role, such as Andrea's that was mentioned, is there an option where instead of hiring a second kind of assistant person, that you would actually have a consultant familiar enough with your books on a quarterly basis so that if something happened, they sort of spell us?
I mean, there are those services. You pay a premium for it. We could do that comparison. There are a few firms out there that provide that sort of interim work, but they don't give it away.
No, I'm sure.
I
I'm
think
sure.
the challenge too is the difference in the rural for municipal employee or private industry, just kind of makes it a bigger goal.
Yeah.
Private industry is much easier, because everyone's private employees.
No, I got you, but I'm
But there are
thinking-
firms that specialize in
Yeah,
municipal.
exactly, consultants that are familiar with public, but,
But I think we need people in town hall with more expertise. So if the head of the department's not available, you have somebody who can help you.
Yeah, we struggle.
Yeah,
You know, even if, someone has a family emergency and they're out for 2-3 weeks, we
Stacy.
really struggle when that happens.
like Jennifer couldn't take vacation one summer because she was alone in the office.
Oh.
And, there was nobody who could fill in.
Yeah.
And that's too bad.
Right.
And that was quite a period of time, as I recall, that she was by herself. It wasn't just a week or two.
No, it was a few months.
Yeah. So it is a struggle.
So stay tuned. We'll hopefully get you that draft
Okay.
report by the end of the week, if not the first of the week, and that'll be.
The direction of this report, the report doesn't sound surprising. That is, your comment about the direction of what the report's likely to say doesn't sound surprising, at least to me.
Well, okay. I think. Well, okay. I'm actually happy to hear that because I was fearful that people were really hoping for some recommendation for dollar savings, and it's going in the other direction. It's going in the other direction. So.
I have a question. In private industry, you don't have staff, you don't have everyone gets the same raise each year. You have annual reviews and you pay people based on how well they do. So if somebody exerts a lot more effort than another person, they get paid more, depending on the responsibility.
Yeah.
Is there any opportunity for that? Anything towards that type of system in town government?
There is.
Okay.
There are certainly models out there that have merit-based pay. It's more challenging with union employees,
Mhm.
but certainly your department heads, you can do that.
Okay.
And we explored it 6 or 7 years ago
Yeah.
pretty seriously, and it didn't move forward, but it could have.
Okay.
So the short answer is yes.
We have minutes from January 23rd and January 29th. People had an opportunity to look at them. I know Gail made amendments to the 23rd. Does
Would you like a
anybody?
motion to adopt them?
I would.
I move that we adopt both sets of motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Andy, second. Any discussion?
Do I get to vote even though I wasn't here if I watched the videos?
Yeah. I was told you don't have to actually be at a meeting to vote on this.
Correct, you don't.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Our next meeting is Wednesday, February 12th, with the library
Yes.
and town budgets. I had a couple of conversations on my walk with David Lumsden driving by in his car. And it sounds to me like they're gonna put another item on the capital budget.
Which is.
Design work for the,
A bathroom.
No, we have that.
no,
I
we
didn't
don't have.
hear you, Andy. Design work for that.
Bathroom.
Did we do 150,000?
Is it me or this bathroom thing?
I feel like we've done it a couple of
That's
times.
good. I feel like this is.
Oh, you're right, we do.
I put it
We
in.
have done
I
this.
put it in.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Then that's not new.
I think
That's the number he gave me on the street today.
but I think that other number can come down, is my understanding.
What number?
The painting of and window work.
Yeah, that can come out. That's,
Yeah,
CPC is doing it.
right.
Yeah, okay. So we'll have to check on that. Yeah.
CPC, they're a couple of meetings away.
Yeah, they are the meeting after that.
And do you have a sense, Dean, of?
We have the spreadsheet.
Oh, we do.
We got a spreadsheet.
Did I send it to you?
I missed it.
I haven't seen it.
Well, I will send it. I have it.
Please send it.
I'll send that out, yeah.
All right, I'm asking because I'm sensitive to whether or not we are in a position of having to kind of push back on a couple of projects last time.
Want me to list what projects there are?
Sure.
Singing Beach bathhouse upgrade, lifeguard chair, Moby mat,
What, just curious, what's the dollar value on the upgrade of
50. Moby mat, I might have some feedback on that.
Okay,
I didn't think much of the Moby mats they had at the beach last summer.
are those plastic things, so it's easier to walk?
It's funny,
on?
some people hate them, some people love
But there
them.
was a drop off of like 4 to 6 inches at the bottom.
Oh, at the end of it?
Yeah, they need to relay them every day. I like the ones over at Tux Point.
Right,
Those are like wood
right, they're not near the water, so they're not getting,
slats. They're much nicer,
they're not getting it.
even though I fell on one day. Affordable Housing Trust,
Right.
200K. Regional Housing Production Plan to update it,
Every 5 years you got to
20K. Historic street lamps was not approved by the CPC.
It wasn't eligible.
Right. Cemetery continued restoration, like we've been doing every year.
Otherwise, they grow
Right.
the residents.
Historic police photos, I think they were getting input from the Historic District Commission. The library windows and rotunda restoration, 300K. That's what was on. But I will send.
And they've contributed to open space through the fall town meeting,
Right.
so we checked that box.
Well, open space and recreation are the same.
That's right.
So
That's
the
right.
3 things we have in there are for recreation.
For some reason, that wasn't handled in FY26 in this budget. That was like,
FY25.
yeah, it
25,
was
okay.
modified, so it's really not.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
But the balance was adjusted.
I have complained to the Affordable Housing Trust, just so everybody knows, that they now have $1.4 million in the bank,
Mhm.
and they have created 0 affordable housing in their history. I don't in any way impugn their good intention, but we have not seen production from them. And it's unfortunate. They have all sorts of barriers and problems with what they're doing. I appreciate that, but are we going to continue to raise the $1.4 million, the $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, and have no affordable housing created in town? I know they're trying.
Yeah, I
I'm
think,
not saying they're nasty or bad people
I
or anything.
think there's
but-
challenges, and
Yeah,
I
you
think
bet.
the biggest challenge is in order to have something be financially feasible to the nonprofit developers. They need a space with about 40 units. And they need the Affordable Housing Trust to basically kick in the cost of the acquisition of property. And at $1.4 million,
There, and
That's-
I actually say 40 units is a great idea. There's no place to put 40 units.
That's the problem.
Okay,
That's the
so
problem.
we're funding a non-operative program here. I don't mind giving them another 200,000. It's fine, you know, they're not wasting it, but they're sure not using it. And there's gotta be 3 or 4 affordable families with 2-year, you know, couple of kids that would benefit from moving to Manchester and going to the Manchester schools, and they're not getting it done.
Well,
So,
and I
I'm
think
sorry.
one of the things that's going to be looked at is the feasibility of perhaps the trust maybe helping to pay for legal services or something.
Well, they've done a little.
If people
yeah,
want to restrict existing building, existing units, to kind of make it, see if there's a way of creating an infrastructure that people could come to, pay for by the trust, that would make it easier to convert existing.
That would be
Housing
good.
stock.
That would be good.
Um,
We gotta be, we
I
gotta have
know.
our eyes open here.
I
That's
know.
all.
It's, and I agree with you, I'm very frustrated.
One question that ponies onto that is, have we had any progress in North Shore CDC? Hey, okay,
I think Ann signed the paperwork today.
wow, awesome. All right,
A long time coming. but
progress.
There is progress.
29 units.
The Affordable Housing Trust
There's
did
some
get
production.
involved in that, Lori,
I know.
including Peggy,
Don't try to take credit.
who works for ActionAid
Very, very
and
good.
had a relationship with the new head of Ultraseed.
Well, it's good. Glad to see that.
Yeah.
That was good. That's great news. It's been hanging
It's
on
not
for a
done yet.
while.
Not done yet.
Progress.
It is.
The only other thing I have is that, I think Pam,
Oh, the number crunching team.
number crunching team, I've been in touch with Ann Harrison because they wanted 2 people from town, either 2 from FinCom
Oh,
or 1 from Select Board and 1 from FinCom. And Ann wants to be on it. And I would like to be on it unless somebody else on FinCom wants to do it.
Back, well,
Okay.
I'm happy to play some role too.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I'll give Pam those. She's itching to, I don't know what it's gonna involve,
I sort of figured.
but I'm sure it's stuff I can farm out.
So it'll probably consist of, half a dozen meetings
Yeah,
over the next few months.
dealing with 2 members of the Essex FinCom.
very vocal.
Right.
So on the school, did anyone know how the hearing went?
Oh, I
yesterday?
went.
I missed it.
I attended it.
Yeah.
The public comment was predominantly supporting a budget increase of 9%. Not a single person enumerated the difference between, as far as curriculum went, between the 9% budget and the 5.42% budget. So I thought that was,
Looks like the 5.4, we can plug it in. And
no,
then-
I think it's gonna go up
Well, because of the insurance,
The insurance.
because of the health insurance.
but we can deal with that with.
Their initial quote is 27% increase
27.
27?
from their existing carrier.
What?
So they're going out for bids.
Can they merge with the town?
No, they can use the town's carrier, but they have to stand on their own. They're
Right.
high
I-
utilization of their health insurance is a
Absolutely.
challenge.
Teachers.
And is that including looking seriously at Maya or not?
Yes.
They're going to.
Okay, good.
They're going to look at Maya. But I think they were waiting to get the final quote from their existing carrier
Before they go to mine.
before they go out and,
Well, they're teed up to get, they've already talked to Maya
Okay.
and a couple of others.
so. But it was, nobody from the Essex FinCom spoke at the school public hearing.
I'll tell you, 3 of them were playing paddle tennis last night.
Good job!
Screaming at me in the woods. So it was a 1-on-3.
I don't know, I gotta do I'm gonna sit down and look at the budget we got in December versus the budget we got in January and just kind of exactly enumerate the differences. I think one was the loss of the principal at the middle school.
Yes.
Right.
But they've added 2 deans in the last 2 years. So it's, but, and of course, using 500,000 from reserves, but Pam said they're adding 200 to it after last fiscal. So
they're
it's,
using 300.
it's like we've been doing where we've been spending reserves, but then we add more.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, I'm gonna look at that and see. Anybody, anything else?
Return?
To adjourn.
Andy moves to adjourn, you
Second.
second it, Peter, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Andy, you can